industry in Utah. On the other hand, being able to sustain their way of life depended almost absolutely on a powerful degree of isolation. The railroad destroyed that. The railroad opened up the gates. The railroad let the world in and sometimes let the Mormons out. And it had to have been a terrible blow to the base of the society's confidence in itself.
In 1870, some 5,000 Mormon women held an indignation meeting in the Salt Lake Tabernacle. They were protesting against those non-believers who had dared criticize plural marriage.
The world says polygamy makes women inferior to men. We think differently. Polygamy gives women more time for thought, for mental culture, more freedom of action, a broader field of labor, and leads women more directly to God, the fountain of all truth. Emmeline Wells.
One of the keynote speakers at the rally was a determined, hard-working woman named Emmeline Wells. Born in Massachusetts and graduated from a select girls' school, Wells had converted to Mormonism and moved to Nauvoo, Illinois, where she lost her first child and was abandoned by her husband, all before the age of 16. A second husband died. Then she became the seventh wife of Daniel Wells, the mayor of Salt Lake City. Now she lived in her own small house and helped to support herself and her family when Wells's finances suffered. I have no strong arm to lean upon, no protection or comfort in my husband, she wrote privately in her diary. And yet, her commitment to plural marriage was unshakable.
I actually think that some of the great feminists were women in polygamy. My great-great-grandmother is among them. If there was a woman who excelled in teaching, she had her own life. If there was another woman who excelled in cooking or farming, she had her life. And everyone had kind of their own focus. There was a tremendous sense of sisterhood. And in many ways, the men were immaterial.
Throughout the United States, women were denied the right to vote. And Wells, as the outspoken editor of a popular Mormon newspaper for women, wanted to change that.
The Woman's Exponent, Volume 1, Number 1. Millions of intelligent women are deprived of the vote simply because nature qualified them to become mothers and not fathers of men. They may own property, pay taxes, assist in supporting the government, rend their heartstrings in giving for its aid the children of their affections, but they are denied all right to say who shall disperse those taxes, how that government shall be conducted, or who shall decide on a question of peace or war, which may involve the lives of their sons, brothers, fathers, and husbands.
In her push for the vote in Utah, Wells found a most unlikely ally, the Mormon patriarch himself, Brigham Young. He was certain that adding Mormon women to the voters' rolls would only strengthen his hold on Utah. On February 12, 1870, with Young's backing, the Utah Territorial Legislature granted women the right to vote. 2 days later, they exercised it. Young's niece voted first, followed by one of his daughters. Eventually, Emmeline Wells joined the leadership of the national suffrage movement, determined to win for all American women the right now enjoyed in Utah. But she never stopped lobbying for another cause just as precious to her: the right to remain a plural wife.
All honor and reverence to good men, but they and their attentions are not the only source of happiness on the earth, and need not fill up every thought of woman. And when men see that women can exist without their being constantly at hand, it will perhaps take a little of the conceit out of some of them. Emmeline Wells.
Following the lead of the Union Pacific and Central Pacific, other rail lines soon spread throughout the West. The Kansas Pacific, Northern Pacific and Denver Pacific, the Texas and Pacific, the Denver and Rio Grande, the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe. And as the railroads moved onto the Great Plains, they brought with them people who had never seen the West, or its most magnificent animal, the buffalo. At first, they shot the buffalo for sport, banging away at the huge herds from the windows of passenger cars. One church group from Lawrence, Kansas, organized a 2-day hunting excursion to raise money for the congregation. 300 people signed up.
When the white men wanted to build railroads, or when they wanted to farm or raise cattle, the buffalo still protected the Kiowas. They tore up the railroad tracks and the gardens. They chased the cattle off the ranges. The buffalo loved their people as much as the Kiowas loved them. Then the white men hired hunters to do nothing but kill the buffalo. Old Lady Horse.
The buffalo didn't belong to anybody. If you could kill them, what they brought was yours. They were walking gold pieces. Frank H. Mayer.
Frank Mayer was hanging around Dodge City, Kansas, in the heart of buffalo country, looking for work, when he met 2 hunters who offered to show him their brand new trade. I was young. I needed adventure, he remembered. Here was it. The new rail lines meant that buffalo robes and buffalo meat could be taken to eastern markets in greater numbers at lower costs. And manufacturers had perfected techniques for turning stiff buffalo hides into soft leather. Ideal for shoes, cushions, carriage tops, and the belts that turned machinery in eastern factories. Frank Mayer was determined to be among the first to profit from the buffalo boom. He sank everything he owned into a hunting outfit: wagons, mules, camp equipment, and firearms. Then he headed out onto the plains.
When I went into the business, I sat down and figured that I was indeed one of Fortune's children. Just think, there were 20 million buffalo, each worth at least $3. 60 million. At the very outside, cartridges cost 25 cents each. So every time I fired one, I got my investment back 12 times over. I could kill 100 a day. That would be $6,000 a month. Or 3 times what was paid, it seems to me, the President of the United States. Was I not lucky that I discovered this quick and easy way to fortune? I thought I was. Frank H. Mayer.
We had a motley array of neighbors. On one side, a German who could scarce speak English, married to a Bohemian who could speak little English and no German. On another side, a family of Swedes fresh from the old country. On an adjoining farm, a Scotsman with a Missouri wife. Nearby, a family from Iowa, another family from Illinois, some old, some young, some illiterate, some well-educated, yet all engaged in the same enterprise.
As more and more railroads expanded into the West, an intense competition between them began. Settlers were sought who would provide business for their freight trains and buy the land the railroad